You've walked past one 100 times. Red and white stripes spinning slowly outside a barbershop. You've never once questioned it. Turns out, that spinning pole is one of the last visible clues to one of the strangest job titles in human history. Because barbers didn't always just cut hair. For hundreds of years, the person trimming your beard might also pull your teeth, set your broken bone, or cut you open with a knife. They were called barber surgeons. And yes, that's a real, official job title. So, how did a haircut and a surgery end up under the same roof? Blame the Pope. In 1163, Pope Alexander III banned monks and priests from performing bloodletting. Bloodletting, the medical belief that draining blood could cure fevers, plague, basically anything, was considered unclean for clergy to perform. So the church needed someone else with steady hands and sharp tools, and barbers, conveniently, already had both. Barbers stepped into the gap, and they didn't stop at bloodletting. They started pulling teeth, setting bones, performing amputations, lancing boils, even administering enemas. Medicine at the time had a strict social hierarchy, and it was almost comically snobbish. At the top, physicians, educated at Oxford or Cambridge, who considered actual cutting beneath them. They'd diagnose the problem and literally mark on the patient's skin where the cutting should happen. Then they'd step back and let a barber surgeon do the messy part. Physicians were even nicknamed doctors of the long robe. Barber surgeons were doctors of the short robe, a polite way of saying the help. Despite the snobbery, barber surgeons ended up doing some of history's most important medical work. One of them, a Frenchman named Ambroise Paré, started his career shaving customers at 4 a.m. as a barber surgeon's apprentice. He went on to become surgeon to 4 separate French kings, and today he's widely called the father of modern surgery. Paré also pioneered a technique that sounds obvious now, but wasn't back then. Instead of cauterizing wounds with boiling oil, he tied off blood vessels with gentle ligatures. His own patients recovered faster and screamed less, which, by 1500s medical standards, counted as a revolutionary discovery. So yes, modern surgery, as a discipline, was partly built by guys who also gave haircuts. Now, the pole. Here's where it gets genuinely gross. During bloodletting, patients gripped a wooden rod tightly in their fist. Squeezing the rod made their veins bulge, so the barber surgeon could find them more easily. That rod is the barber pole. The original one. The one you're picturing right now is a direct descendant of a stick people gripped while getting cut open. At the top of the pole sat a brass basin. That basin held either the leeches used for bloodletting or the blood itself as it drained down. After the procedure, the barber would wrap the wound in white bandages. Then, because laundry apparently wasn't a priority, those blood-soaked bandages got washed and hung outside to dry, tied to the same pole. The wind twisted the wet bandages around the rod as they dried. Red-stained cloth, spiraling around white cloth, flapping outside every barbershop in Europe. That twisting pattern is the exact stripe design you still see spinning today. It's not paint, it's not design, it's laundry. Bloody laundry, immortalized as a permanent business logo. Eventually, someone thought, maybe we should just paint the pole instead of hanging actual bloody towels outside. And the modern striped pole was born. For context, this wasn't the only trade with a symbolic street sign back then. Illiteracy was common, so shops needed symbols instead of words. Apothecaries hung a glowing colored globe. Tobacconists used a carved wooden Indian statue. Pawnbrokers hung 3 gold balls. The barber pole is simply the one that survived, mostly intact, into the modern day. But barbers and surgeons didn't stay unified forever. In 1540, King Henry VIII formally merged the Barbers' Guild and the Surgeons' Guild in London into one official organization, the Company of Barber Surgeons. There's literally a painting of this, Henry VIII handing over the royal charter, by Hans Holbein, the same court painter responsible for half the royal portraits you've seen of Henry. As part of that charter, the new company was granted something delightfully grim, the bodies of 4 executed criminals per year, specifically for dissection and anatomical study. As surgery became more scientific, Surgeons wanted distance from the guys also giving shaves. A 1540s statute required barbers and surgeons to visually distinguish their services using different pole colors. Surgeons used red and white poles. Barbers used blue and white poles. By 1745, surgeons formally split off entirely, eventually forming what became the Royal College of Surgeons. Barbers were left holding just the pole, literally. Even after the split, the company's fingerprints stayed everywhere in maritime history. Every ship surgeon in the English Navy during the golden age of piracy was, technically, a licensed member of the Company of Barber Surgeons. So the guy stitching up a wounded pirate below deck may well have started his career giving haircuts on land. So what about the blue stripe on American poles specifically? There are two competing theories, and nobody fully agrees on either. One theory says blue represents the veins targeted during bloodletting. Red for arteries, blue for veins, white for bandages. The other theory is far less medical. Blue was added simply as a patriotic nod to the American flag. Either way, once bloodletting fell out of fashion in the mid-1700s, actual barber surgery quietly disappeared. The barbers kept the haircuts, the surgeons kept the surgery. Only the pole stuck around as a leftover fossil of the merger. And speaking of bloodletting falling out of fashion, it didn't happen fast enough for everyone. In 1799, George Washington got a sore throat. His doctors responded by draining an estimated 40% of his blood over 24 hours. He died the next day. This was standard medical practice at the time, the same practice that put a pole outside every barbershop in the country he'd just helped found. For the next 2 centuries, the pole stayed mostly wooden, hand-painted, and static. By 1905, newspapers were already reporting that use of the pole was diminishing in America, a full century before anyone assumed it might disappear. Then, in 1950, everything changed. A man named William Marvey, running a small barber supply business out of St. Paul, Minnesota, built something new. A motorized rotating barber pole, lit from within, spinning continuously, made of lightweight aluminum and unbreakable lucite. The Wall Street Journal called it the first real improvement in the barber pole in a quarter century. Marvey's design became the industry standard almost overnight. His company became the last barber pole manufacturer left in North America, and it still is today. The pole even earned legal protection eventually. In 2013, Minnesota passed a law stating the traditional red, white, and blue pole can only be legally displayed by an actual licensed barber, meaning that spinning pole isn't just decoration anymore. In some places, it's a regulated professional credential, the same as a diploma on a wall. Interestingly, the pole's meaning hasn't stayed universally the same everywhere in the world either. In parts of South Korea, a barber pole can carry an entirely different, unrelated meaning outside the shop. A reminder that the same 900-year-old symbol didn't travel the globe with a fixed definition attached to it. So next time you walk past one of those spinning red, white, and blue poles, you're looking at a 900-year-old visual reference to teeth pulling, bloodletting, and amputation, spinning cheerfully outside a place that now just wants to give you a fade. The pole never got the memo that the job changed. It's still advertising surgery. You're just getting a haircut instead.